Got it. Okay. Well then, hello everybody. Nice to see you, see some of your faces and your cute backgrounds. So nice to have a lead space with all of you for just the next hour together. Not too many of us here, so I think we can have a good conversation together. I'm going to put up our slides and then we'll go ahead and get started with the space. So let's get it going. Good. Okay, so I think you can see these. But before we get started, we're going to be talking today about empowering others, specifically about engaging with others to achieve a bigger purpose, which I think is obvious that that's something that's important in an MCP journey, is how can you get other people on the same page to achieve something that you want to achieve. But before we get started, I wanted to just have a moment kind of to check into the space. So I think first question, I know you were talking before and I caught the end of the conversation, but how's your energy level? Just your energy for like the next 1 hour, not for like fixing all the problems in your entity or getting things back on track, but like how's your energy for the next 1 hour on a scale of 1 is very low and 5 is very high. So how is your energy? Just write in the chat box, just so I know what we're dealing with. Okay, 8 is super high, I'm assuming, if it's 1 to 5. Okay, 4, 3.5, 4, 5. Okay, I think that's fair. You've had a couple days of sessions, so I think it's fair to be, not everybody's at 5 out of 5, but I think that that's pretty good. Well, like I said, we're just gonna have a bit of time together, a little bit of talking, a little bit of listening. I think you have a quick break again after the session, so hopefully it can just be, my hope with the session is it's an interesting concept, something maybe you can take forward to your team, something maybe that's useful in your replanning, maybe just kind of interesting as you go into the second half of your term. That's kind of my hope with what we're going to talk about today. So hopefully not too complicated, not too heavy, not going to make you more tired. But I do want to start with a chance to kind of be honest about what's going on with you and your entities. So I have a question for you to start. So we're going to talk about engaging with others to achieve a bigger purpose. So trying to make something happen. So as an MCP, usually you know a lot of things that you would like to happen in your entity. You maybe have like a whole list of things that you would like to be different in your entity, or things that you would like to, teach your members or change about how things are. So I want you to, you don't have to tell me what it is, but I want you to write in the chat box like yes, or I have it, or I know it. When you can think of the one thing that if you could change it in your entity, you would be able to change it. So it's guaranteed 100%, you'd be able to change it, but it's only this one thing. You can't have 3 things or 5 things or 7 things. If there was like one ultimate thing that you could change, something in the culture, in the processes, in the financial state, I don't care, anything. When you know what that one thing is in your head, I want you to write yes in the chat box. So it's one thing. Okay, so some of you already know it, some of you are thinking. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I think this is a pretty easy question for MCPs because there's usually something that you're dealing with that's bothering you or frustrating you, or it's been frustrating you since you got elected or something like that, that you would like to change. Okay, so you know this thing. The next question that I have for you, and this question, I'm gonna put you in a quick conversation with like 2 other MCPs. You're gonna have like 5 minutes, it's not super long, but I want you to talk to each other about why haven't you changed it yet? What has stopped you? Is it something that you can control, something you can't control? Is it fear? Is it external context? Is it mindset? Is it culture? Like, what is it? Why haven't you changed it yet? What has been the barrier to that, almost at the halfway mark of your term? So if you could change one thing, why haven't you changed it yet? So have an honest conversation with a couple of MCPs, and let's see if things are similar. Maybe they're different, but let's see. And then, of course, Shome, it's going to try to put you in a breakout room. You don't have to go. But let's go ahead and put you guys to have a conversation. Okay, so see if you can have a conversation with a few other MCPs.
Hi, guys.
chance to just hear some commonalities. We had about 3 different groups talking, so I don't know if you were having similar conversations or different, but does anybody feel willing to share? You don't have to share maybe everything that you talked about as a group, but were there similar reasons why things hadn't changed? Were they very different in your group? What's maybe something that you're facing about making change happen in your entity? Anyone feel comfortable sharing? You can raise a hand or just say hey, or just unmute and start talking.
I can go, perhaps.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I think the reason why we haven't changed it yet is I think all of us are working on it, but then change is not something. I think all of us have long-term problems we want to solve. So we feel it is something that we are working on, but it's not something we can just change overnight or in a year. So this is I think this also comes down into how you envision the long-term strategy and the vision for your organization, and you work on it slowly. And hopefully in 3 to 5 years, you can actually see it happen when you're sitting there as an alumnus or something.
Yeah, that's a very good long-term perspective to see that be patient with the change you want to make. Anybody else? What else were you facing? Was it similar, that it was just taking time, or was there some other barrier to your change happening?
So I can share.
Yeah.
So the one thing that we talked about, at least I talked about, was the general instability in terms of leadership pipelining. And there's a lot that, let's say, I am doing in this current term. It's really difficult to see whether or not that's making an impact, because it takes 1 or 2 years to really observe that the efforts you made in one term, how are they coming out.
Got it. Okay, and then now for the next one. I accept that my beliefs and attitudes may be wrong. Is that never you? That doesn't describe you on a regular day? Is that always you? You can think of a bunch of examples, or are you somewhere in between? I accept that my beliefs and attitudes may be wrong. Okay, next one. In the face of conflicting evidence, I am open to changing my opinions. So when you encounter new evidence, you're open to changing what you have decided. Is that a 1? Really not you? That's not how you operate? Or is that a 5? That's always you? You can think of multiple examples. Okay, I think this is the last one. I like finding out new information that differs from what I already think. So you actually enjoy finding out new information that challenges what you think. Is that a 1, never you? Is that a 5, always you, or something in between? Okay, now it's math time. So you should have 5 numbers. I want you to add those 5, or 6 numbers, I'm sorry, not that 5, 6. You should have 6 numbers, add those up and divide them by 6. So pretty simple. That should give you your average score. So your average score is gonna be somewhere between 1 and 5. So when you have that number, say yes, let me know in the chat box. You added them up and divided by 6. Got it, good job. This is hopefully simple math. I don't like math, but I can handle this amount of math. Okay, so good. So you have your kind of average score. Like I said, this is a self-assessment. There's not a right or wrong answer. But what self-assessment you were just taking, it was a set of questions to measure how comfortable or how familiar you are with the concept of intellectual humility, which is the concept I wanted to introduce you to in this space. So 5 means more comfortable. It's a characteristic that you are naturally displaying all the time, or you have a lot of practice with it. Anything closer to 1 was maybe you don't have a lot of practice with this. It's not as natural for you. But the good thing is this is not a permanent state of being. It's something that can change about people. So we're going to break down what the concept is. I'm going to explain why I think it's really important as an MCP to have intellectual humility. And maybe you can see if this is something that you're already really comfortable with. Maybe someone in your team or your entity needs this concept. So what is intellectual humility? It is basically a characteristic in between different behaviors. So if you look at this image, I think the best way to describe it is an image like this, where you look at 2 ends of extreme that a person can be. So on one extreme, you've got your stubborn people, and you know these people, the people that are unwilling to change. Even when you try to convince them with a good argument or with a good explanation or a good logic, they're just not willing to change. And even if they say they're willing to change, like, they're not open to changing. So that's your stubborn people. And on the other end of the extreme, you have your gullible people. So gullibility, that's your people that change too much constantly. Like every single time a new opinion comes, they change. And this is exhausting because, you know, you might convince them of something and then you're like, okay, fine, good. They agree. We're on the same page. And then they go talk to somebody else that tells them the opposite. And then they totally change their mind. They're very frustrating in an argument, someone that's like this, but they're gullible because they really believe that every new opinion means that they should change their mind. So stubborn's all the way over here, gullible's all the way over here. Intellectual humility, it's right there in the middle. It's that perfect spot where people are willing to change their mind if they have the evidence that they should. If they don't have the evidence, they're not going to. So they're confident in what they believe, but if something actually makes sense and challenges their opinion, they're willing to change. And so that's the ideal sweet spot. I think you can imagine why that's useful. And maybe you can think of yourself or maybe the most frustrating people on your MC team. Are they more frustrating because they're stubborn, or are they more frustrating because they're gullible? But that's the idea. That's the idea of intellectual humility. And the reason why I think it's important as an MCP is because, like, I think it's part of the MCP JD, people coming to tell you that they think that you should do something different, like telling you their opinion. That's like part of being MCP, is listening to people tell you what to do. So it's your MC team giving you feedback, telling you that they think you should be doing something differently, or that you're not doing enough or not fast enough. It's your alumni coming in and saying, like, oh, we did it like this when I was an ISACer. You know, like, I know you're facing challenges now, but like, can you listen to me and what I want you to do? It's your LCPs telling you that they want you to do something different, or they need something else from you, or it's you're not fast enough, or it's not good enough. It's your board of directors, or your alumni, or your board of directors, or your board of advisors, or your SG, whatever you have as a board. It's them telling you that your budget has to be a certain way, your finances have to be a certain way, you have to figure things out. Whatever it is, you've got ISAC International telling you, like, figure it out. We don't have the answers, but you can figure it out. You do it, find a solution. Us telling you to apply for pilot projects and follow the rules, but figure things out and do new stuff. It's regional office doing the same thing, telling you to have calls with them and come to conferences and figure things out and find solutions and brainstorm. It's your successor, who you'll have soon if you don't have yet, who, even though, you know, they're not MCP yet, as soon as they're elected, they're going to be on your mind. You know, you're going to be wondering, you know, what are they going to want? How can it work for them? If you do something, are they going to change it as soon as they take over as MCP? So it's literally constant that you're getting input from people as MCP telling you to change. And you have this options for how you're going to react. You have the stubborn reaction, you have the gullible reaction, or you have that reaction somewhere in the middle. So when I list all these people, I could probably give you 100 examples of my own MCP term and how I was asked to change. But I want to know from you, just like to keep it a bit light. You've probably received like 1 million pieces of input at this point in your term. So imagine another one of these people, your successor, your alumni, your board, coming to you to tell you something else they think you should change. Are you where you're like, fine, another person that hates me, I get it, everyone hates me, I'm not good enough, I'm the worst MCP? Are you the please shut up person who's about to lose your mind and kill somebody if one more person gives you input, but you are holding on to your rage? Or are you maybe one of those very special people that loves feedback and you're thriving and you want people to give you more feedback and tell you that you should change? Okay, be honest. This is your chance to be honest. Okay, so A, C on the outside, A on the inside. A, defo A. B, okay, A. And C, like to listen but never align. Yeah. Okay, so it's true, like, you know what you are, and if you're B, it means you probably have gotten a lot of feedback lately and you just need a break. Yeah, okay, so it's not gonna go away, for sure. It's not gonna stop your whole MCP term, and then if you go to regional office or AI, more people are gonna tell you what to do. If you go to a job after this, people are gonna try to tell you what to do. Like, it never ends. So we're only focusing on our own reaction and what we can control, because this is never going to stop. People are always going to be coming to tell you what to do. Okay, so everyone's identifying with Travis, with C in a good state, B for bad state. Yeah, pretty normal. But, you know, this is what kind of can give you a sense of that level of comfort you have with this pressure to change. So we talked about what intellectual humility is. It's that idea of in between gullible and stubborn. So you can see on the left side, the vertical axis, like low to high, you know, how willing are you to change when you are presented with new information? But another important part of that is across the bottom axis, the low to high, openness to new experiences. Because even if you're willing to change, if you're not exposing yourself to the evidence or the information or the opinions of other people, then you're never going to get that spark or that push to change. You can say like, yeah, I'm willing to change. I'm open to feedback. I love it. But if you're not actually receiving that information and processing it, you're not going to actually have the direction to change. So this is pretty obvious, I think, but people that are low with intellectual humility, so maybe they're also more stubborn, and they're not open to new experiences. They're that one that says, I'm a stick in the mud. So that's like just stuck, never going to change, not listening to new information, not willing to change. I'm just like stuck and not useful and not making progress. On this top left one, which I don't know what is this cartoon guy doing, but he's wearing like a pot on his head. He is a very high intellectual humility, so really open to change their mind, but not open to new experiences, so not encountering that new information. So I'm totally down to change my mind about things, but you've got to get me out of my bubble. So that's the people that like, yeah, sure, they're open-minded, but they're not exposing themselves to new information, so you have to really push them. Really have to push them to get the new information. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there. And then the bottom right, the person with the little spiky hair, they are very open to new experiences, but they have low intellectual humility. So they have low willingness to change. And it says, I'm pretty much the most frustrating person to argue with. This is that person, like, it's the person that says, like, I love being devil's advocate. They just like argue for the sake of arguing. Like, they'll talk about any new information. They will like change their mind just to challenge you because they enjoy it, not because they actually believe it and want to change their mind. So that's extremely frustrating. And then the top right is really what the ideal situation is. So we're all striving to be this like wavy haired person, is I'll hear anyone out and make a smart and unbiased decision on whether to change my mind. You should probably elect me president. So hopefully this is you sometimes, is as MCP, is that you're willing to change, but also you're putting yourself in a position where you can get the information to change. Because you can say you're open-minded, but if you're not listening to anyone, then you're never going to actually get that opportunity to change. Like, no one's going to give you information that might change your mind. So maybe this is somehow familiar to you. And like I said, maybe either it's you are one of these people and you recognize that, or maybe it's someone in your team or in your entity that's, you know, making it hard to change things because they're either not open to new information or they're not willing to change when they get that new information. And this is super normal. It can come from a million different reasons: defensiveness, fear, anything. It can be for so many different reasons. So that's the concept. And I want to talk a bit about what it looks like in action. So I wanted to share a bit of my own story with you about when I really saw intellectual humility showing up in the P role, in the president role. and why I think it's a really important concept. It's started here, actually, like a long time ago, many, many, many years ago, in my election as PAI. I was terrified to apply for PAI. I was, of all the people that I ran against, I was the last person to decide to apply. I think I decided to apply 8 days before the deadline. So I did the whole application and everything in 8 days. And it was intense and stressful and scary. And I was so scared to apply because I really didn't, I knew what I believed, and I knew what, if I applied for PAI, I knew the things I wanted to say. And I was very insecure if anybody wanted to listen to them. Like if they would be exciting enough, because they weren't innovative. I'm not a crazy idea person. I'm not going to try to reinvent things. And it's not what I wanted. I really believed that ISIC needed to do what ISIC does best, consistently, reliably, do what we say we're going to do, and then we'll grow. And that would be it. It was like very simple. Let's focus on the core. Let's focus on what we're supposed to do. Let's be the ISIC that we say we're supposed to be. And then that's it. And that's how we'll fix the problems. We'll stop being unsustainable. We'll stop having pipeline issues if we stop making unsustainable choices. And so I was really afraid that that wasn't very sexy or exciting for ISIC. And so I was really scared to apply. And the whole time I was at IPM in the election process, like, I've never felt such intense and overwhelming and almost paralyzing imposter syndrome. Like every time I would give a speech or answer a Q&A in a regional Q&A, like anything, I would walk off the stage, and my runner was Bersabel on my team. And when I would walk off the stage and enter the hallway, I would turn to her and I would say, like, well, that was the worst speech anyone ever gave for PAI. That was the worst Q&A. Oh my God, that was horrible. I'm so embarrassing. I'm so sorry that I made you my runner. And I would just feel so horrible. And she would say, like, what is wrong with you? That was very good. And it was just like one of the worst examples I ever had of feeling just incompetent. And it was very hard. And I think that I learned a lot about imposter syndrome, about how hard it is to be a leader as a woman, like so many things that were hard for me. But then this moment came. This moment of feeling the water poured out on you and feeling like people actually believe in your ideas. So I don't know how your election was, but you know, this moment can feel like a really big confidence boost. It can feel like, oh my gosh, people like my ideas. They believe in me. So what should have happened is I should have left this election feeling super confident that the things I wanted, ISIC also wanted. Because that's what the election is. It's like a vote of confidence for your ideas. So I should have left that way, but insecurity and fear, they're very deep inside of us, and they show up even after we have moments like this. And so I went into my term feeling really afraid, still, that people weren't going to like my ideas, they weren't going to work for them. And I really didn't want to be a dictator and force my team to do the things I wanted to do. I wanted to listen to their ideas. So I wanted to be a democratic leader and let my team plan together. So we went through planning and all these things as an AI team to make our plans. And they were good plans, but I wasn't really being very loud about the things that I wanted to change in ISIC. And this is February. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November comes around, and this conference happens. The one we're in now, but a year ago, APLS in Cambodia happened with all of your predecessors or the previous generation of MCPs. And I'm there with Shomei, with Eva, with the regional office, and we start the conference, and it's classic ISIC summit conference where the sessions are packed with information, tons of checklists, tons of strategies. People are like running from session to session because we're running over time, like so much information. And honestly, really good session. Like the sessions created were high quality, they were organized, they had interesting activities, but they were intense. And they were just very directive, like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And this bunch of MCPs came to us, maybe 1 or 2 days into the conference, and they said, we hate this. Like, we hate this conference. We hate this way of doing ISIC. We came here to talk about how to make people have fun again. Our members are back home not having fun and they're not enjoying ISIC. And maybe that's something that you're feeling now, even though the context is totally different. But back then it was that we were being so top down, so directive, so checklist, so strategy focused that nobody was having fun in ISIC anymore. And it was such a wake up call. And I'm so grateful for this conference because it reminded me that, yeah, I already knew all this stuff. I knew this in February and I said it and people voted for it. And we didn't make enough of a change fast enough. And so we changed the whole agenda. Nobody slept. The regional office were rock stars and like put all their energy into making this work. And then the conference improved a lot, and we changed it. We had hours of sessions on the inner-outer journey, on what is leadership, what it feels like to be a member, what are the emotional experiences of growing and developing in ISIC. And it was so much more what we needed at that time. But then, of course, again, I'm scared because I have to go back home. And I got home from this conference on a Sunday night, and on Monday morning was AIQ review. And so I planned and worked on the flights and came back to my team and showed them this slide. I showed them a slide in my Q review where I told them, like, I have been so scared of what people think, of opinions, of being challenged, of not making people happy, that I've been afraid to talk about why I even applied for PAI, what I believed in, what I got voted for on, like the changes I wanted to make in this organization. I wasn't able to make a change because I was changing every time someone brought a different opinion. And so I was too afraid. And so I said that to them, and I said, I want to change. I want things to be different. I want us to make ISIC sustainable. I want us to make ISIC able to last in the long term. I want us to exist in the future. And this is December. And we don't know all the drama that's going to. My team agreed. They said, we agree, we support this, we want this too. And so we started making changes. And so this conference happened. And some of you were here that we had IPM happen in Russia. And this was the Essence session, which was another session I was terrified to deliver because I was terrified to be honest and say what I believed and say to people, I think that we are choosing to be unsustainable as ISIC. I think we're choosing to not exist in the long term. I think we're choosing, short-term results over long-term success. I think that we're obsessed with approvals and getting numbers and being the winner and not with actually making a long-term change. And I said those things terrified. I was physically shaking before this Essence session. And people said, yeah, people said, we agree, we believe it. And that willingness to change was embraced again. And you know how the timeline went. Like, this was just a week or so before we actually finally accepted how coronavirus was going to impact ISIC. It already had started, but I think that we were still being really optimistic and naive about how it was going to change ISIC. But about a week after IPM, you couldn't ignore it anymore. And we didn't get to finish all the work that we started because we had to go into crisis mode. But in my opinion, like, this conference will forever be the highlight of my ISIC experience because I said what I believed. I was willing to talk about it openly, get people on the same page. And I'll always be a little bit sad because I would love to know where ISIC would be today in November 2020 if we had been able to work from IPM until now on those kind of things, being more sustainable, changing the culture of ISIC. If we had had the freedom, I mean, if things had gone well, I wouldn't even be an ISIC anymore. I'd be an alumni right now because I would have had the chance the second 6 months of my term to work on this, and then we would have passed on the organization to your generation. So I'll always be sad. I'll always probably dream about that, what would have happened if we'd had that chance. But we didn't have it. But I'm so, so grateful, and I'll always be grateful that I had no idea this was my last chance to say to the ISIC plenary the things we needed to change before coronavirus. And I'm so glad that in this conference, we were having the right conversations. So at least they were there. We knew what we wanted. ISIC was gonna go in the right direction. And of course, we got slapped in the face with a pandemic, but the desire, the willingness to change, the willingness to be open to new information, it was there in the organization. I know it was there. I can trust that and I can believe in it. And that's what gives me energy to keep going until now. Even as hard as it is now in November to be online for another virtual conference, like, I would not give up on ISIC because of this conference, because I know the kind of conversations we were having as MCPs, they were gonna put ISIC on the right path to success. It's just now harder than ever before, but we were gonna do it and we're still gonna do it. It's just gonna be harder and take longer and be more uncertain. So for me, like, this is the story of my PAI term. Like, this is the thing I'll never forget that changed me forever. And I think it's just a really real example of intellectual humility, of that feeling of when you're encountering new information and you're being forced to change. Sometimes it makes people angry and defensive. Like, maybe that's what an emotion you felt before, is people are pushing you to change and it makes you like angry. Like, stop telling me I'm not good enough. Stop telling me to change. Stop telling me I'm doing my best. Like, you know, F off. But sometimes the reaction when people are telling you a big change needs to happen, it's terrifying fear. That's what it was for me. It's like my hands are shaking before I deliver an essence session because I'm so scared of actually saying out loud, I want this change to happen. And it can be 1,000 other emotions. For me, it was fear. For some people, it's anger, frustration, sadness. But when you're confronted with the need to change, it doesn't usually feel easy. It usually has some kind of strong emotion connected to it. So that's what I want you to kind of be mindful of, is what is that strong emotion, that barrier, that thing that might be stopping you from really, with the time you have left, making that change happen, because you never know what's going to happen next. And like I said, if I hadn't been able to have that intellectual humility, which I think is the characteristic of listening to those MCPs and APLS, it would have been so easy to say, like, oh my God, these MCPs are so demanding. They are so needy. Like, their members aren't happy. Like, that's not my problem. And just keep the agenda the same. It would have been so easy to do that, like so stubborn, like, oh, but thank goodness we didn't. Thank goodness we listened and said, yes, I agree. Like, I remember it hurting my ego. I remember feeling a bit sad, like, oh, I didn't make an amazing conference from the beginning, but thank goodness we listened. And thank goodness we were open to change. And if we weren't open to change, like I said, wouldn't exist. This team wouldn't exist. This team was a hard response, a difficult response to a pandemic situation. We said, okay, we're facing a pandemic. We don't have the financial resources to go forward right now with the next generation. Can a small group of people stay and figure it out for a couple of months to bridge for the organization? And these people all said yes. And it's really been challenging. Being a transition team has a lot of emotional pressure on top of the normal pressure of an ISIC term. And they stuck it out and they stayed here for, I think, 19, 20 more days to figure things out and be open to being challenged all the time and be told all the time that you don't have enough answers, because we don't still as ISIC, we don't have enough answers yet. And, you know, to hear that over and over, it can feel really discouraging that we didn't find the answers yet. But we did. And otherwise, like I said, this group of people wouldn't exist. And so what I want to leave you with is a chance to kind of break this down for yourself. I asked you in the beginning, you know, what's stopping you from making a change? And probably you know what it is logically. It's, you know, I just need more time. It's complex. It's going to take a few years. Those can all be true. But also, I want you to be willing to challenge, you know, how much are you stepping up and saying this change needs to happen? How much are you challenging those stubborn people, challenging those gullible people, challenging the people that are not open to new ideas? How much are you fighting for this with the time that you have? So I want you to have a conversation with each other about this, because it's really important. Like, being intellectually humble, it's going to give you two things. It's going to give you the ability to forgive the past. If you're intellectually humble, then you accept that people made the decision that they made based on the evidence they had. And if you don't agree with that decision now, maybe that was the best decision they could have made at the time. So forgiving of the past, and also careful with the present, because one day someone's going to judge your decisions as the past decisions in the entity. And hopefully they will be kind and believe that you made the best decisions that you were able to with the time that you had. And you're careful with the present because you want them to be kind to you. You want to treat the present carefully because one day it'll be the past of your entity. So being intellectually humble can make you these two things. So I want you to talk with a couple other MCPs. I'll put you back with the same ones about yourself. Like, I know that you have a certain level of self-awareness as an MCP, and usually it's pretty high. An MCP journey makes you pretty self-aware. So I want to know, what are the things that you know you need to be intellectually humble, to be open to new information and willing to change? Do you need people around you, like, reminding you that you're confident and that we believe in you and your ideas are good? Do you need structures? You know, I know some really stubborn people that, you know, they don't like to change because they're stubborn, but they actually build things for themselves to force themselves. Like, every time they make a decision, they have to do a research at the beginning, and they have to, and then otherwise they can't make a decision. So they force themselves to, you know, encounter new information. You need a certain routine where you actually, you know, read your application from when you applied, or you go back and revisit information or decisions, or what do you need in your life? It can be anything, in your team and your entity. What do you need in your environment to really be intellectually humble, to be open to new information and willing to make a change happen? So it's different for everyone, but I want you to talk about this for a second, and I want you to share with the group. So I'll send you the question, but it's here again, just so you have it. So take some time and have this conversation with a couple of people. So let's get your rooms going. The conversation, or what are you willing to share about yourself, to maybe see if we're really similar or really different, or what was kind of the thoughts going on in your conversations? What do you need to make sure that you can embrace, willingness to change in your entity?
I also can share.
Yeah,
so this is something actually I want to share, like this thing concept, like even though I didn't has a concept intellectual humility, but this is something that I really and so recently when we are getting like feedback LCPs about the Sona, so got some feedback, like sometimes you all are giving all the direction and they are not heard. So that was a moment that I also felt like, because we were dreaming and with the NC team, we were doing all the like how we need to move forward, but like sometimes we were not, I feel that we are not addressing the main problems that LCPs are facing. So that made a moment that, okay, like open up to LCPs and okay, what are the problems that you see? So I'm open to align national direction as you all also want. So that was a main learning. And I think this concept is really good. And we can do this by setting as an example from the national team. So that will be move forward.
Cool. Thank you. That's really good. So it sounds like context or like grounding was the thing that you needed with your LCPs. That makes sense. Anybody else? What was it for you? What were you talking about? Anyone willing to share?
I can go next. I think for a bunch of us, your keynote especially stood out the most, and I think it's like very empowering in itself. The session's empowering others, but that's a different topic. It was not so much as like a people structure or routine change, but it was like a personal change, and especially for me as well. It's like having the belief to stand up for the things you actually believe in, and like a lot of times it's like, yeah, you're listening to everyone and that is great to listen, but you also need to make your opinions heard as well. And that is a struggle a lot of us had. And your keynote like really stuck home as well. For some of us as well, it was like no straight answer per se, and like something we need to spend more time thinking, because there's a lot of different changes and all of us are in like different stages, entities and all of that as well. So yeah, press on to everything Sister said as well.
Good. Yeah, I definitely agree. Sometimes it's confidence that we need, or that reminder that what you believe is a good idea. Even as MCPs, I think sometimes we need that reminder. Okay, anyone else really want to share? What are you thinking, or what is this kind of making you think about as an MCP? Last chance to share.
I think I can share. Okay, so for me, I think currently I am quite open to change, and open to new information and willing to change. But the issue is the part about taking action and following up. Because for instance, I'll give you an example, like the MC team, they have things that they want to do and everything. And like for me, I'm like, oh yeah, like, so these are the things that you want to do, and like how can we shift our or like how can we direct our entity focus to reach there, etc. But within me, I have some doubts that be it things that I don't think it is possible to happen, or like just some doubts in my head. But the in order to make sure that I can really make it happen or bring the entity in the right direction is being able to face the fear and take action and then following up. Yeah, so I think the part about following up is very important, which I'm really working on it. Yeah.
That's good. That's good to identify that the issue is following up, and then asking yourself, like, what do you either need to push yourself to do, or who do you need to help you to hold yourself accountable following up? You know, what would be the most useful for you? So good. Thank you for everyone that was willing to share. I think hopefully this is leaving some kind of thought in your head of something that you need to do, or a conversation you need to have, or a self-reflection with yourself, but hopefully it's sparking something that you can do next. And what I want to leave you with is, just in case you think that maybe this is the concept that your entity needs to understand or unpack a bit more, you can definitely take it farther. There's more information out there about this if you want to try to see if it could serve you. Maybe this is not the concept your entity needs, maybe it is. And if it is, some of the things that inspired me for making this session are this resource, Character Lab. It's like my go-to when I'm making a session. And they have a space on intellectual humility and some resources about it. And then also there's this website that's much, much longer. It's like almost a small book about why intellectual humility is such a valuable characteristic and why displaying it actually helps you make the better decisions over worse decisions. And it actually has a longer test. You guys did a shorter self-assessment right now, but it actually has a longer one. So check what the first one's called characterlab.org. And then this one, if you just search intellectual humility Shane Snow in the top left corner, you'll find the website as well. But if you find this interesting, learn more, educate yourself more, and break it down and see if it's helpful for you in your term. If this is not the concept you need, take one from a different session in the summit, but always push yourself to learn more and have ideas and concepts to make your entity better. So yes, thank you, Phoebe, helping us with the links. So good. Well, then honestly, just from my side, thank you for being with me for the space. It's nice to always talk with you. And I hope that, a real conversation can make it worth it, even when it's tiring to be online or you've had a long couple days together. I hope just a few minutes of a really real conversation is worth it, because these are rare as an MCP to have these real conversations with each other. So I know from Shomei that your next session's at 3:30 GMT plus 8, but I think you have some spaces or some breaks in between. So I trust you to manage your agenda, but when you have a break, take a real break, stand up, drink some water, eat a snack, and enjoy the rest of these sessions. It was awesome to be with you. And yeah, I wish you all the best with whatever change you're trying to make in your entity. I promise if you act, you'll not regret it, even if it's fear or, time that's against you, still make it happen. So yeah, you have an MOC space now, I think, but otherwise enjoy the rest of your summit. So I'm out. I will give hosting back to Shomei and enjoy the rest of your conference.